This is the MOZA FSR Formula Wheel, and it remains my favourite MOZA wheel to date, probably because I'm a bit of an F1 nerd. And this is the new MOZA FSR2 wheel. Can you spot the difference? MOZA Racing has spent the past year or so updating all of its sim racing hardware to version 2 iterations, and these updates bring improved features and better compatibility. This is also true of the new MOZA FSR2. The wheel may look very similar to the original, however the key updates have gone a pretty long way in allowing this wheel to remain one of the very best Formula steering wheels you can buy. MOZA sent this FSR2 across for testing, and I'm going to share all of my thoughts, both good and bad, in this FSR2 review. The original MOZA FSR wheel launched as the company's flagship F1 steering wheel. It carries that recognisable rectagonal design that most F1 teams utilise, and it packs in a lot of functionality, including a large 4.3-inch display. To highlight just how close this wheel gets to achieving a true F1 experience, I've got the SF1000 steering wheel here, which is a replica of the Ferrari steering wheel used from a few years ago. You can see that the general shape and layout are very similar. Elements such as the thumb encoders, button placements, and that large screen are very comparable. Some areas within the original wheel didn't quite match the real-world wheel or other sim racing competitors though. There were no flag lights, which are common on most F1 wheels, and around the back we've only got 4 paddle shifters rather than the 6 which brands such as Fanatec and Acertec offer. Thankfully, MOZA has fixed pretty much all of these small problem areas with the upgraded FSR2. This revised sim racing wheel now features those missing flag lights, as well as removing that horrible diffused strip across the rev lights which I have never liked. When the steering wheel is flipped over, we're presented with another 2 paddles. That gives us 2 paddle shifters, a dual clutch system, and 2 additional paddles for in-game activations such as DRS or ERS. These are the really notable additions to this upgraded wheel, however there are some other improvements. Back on the front of the wheel, the 2 joysticks have been upgraded to 7-way switches. These are much more helpful as you can assign true directional inputs for menu navigation, as well as rotational inputs for further adjustments while on track, just in case those 7 encoders aren't quite enough. The display has also seen an upgrade and is now a touchscreen. Previously you could cycle through dash designs, but this had to be done with one of the joysticks. Now you can simply swipe through different designs using your finger, and you can use the Pit House software to create your very own designs and layouts, just like you could with other MOZA wheels such as the Vision GS. With all of these new additions, you may expect the price of this upgraded wheel to increase compared to the original, but I'm happy to report that's not the case. The original RRP remains the same at $650 or pounds or €700. This price still positions the FSR2 in the mid to top end price range for a Formula wheel. However, compared to other wheels with displays, this is actually on the cheaper end. For example, the SimMagic FX Pro costs over $100 more, the Acertec Invicta wheel and the Cube Control CSX3 both cost over $500 more. Even the Fanatec Club Sport Formula V2.5X with the podium paddle module costs just $100 less than this FSR2 wheel, and that doesn't have a display. There is one notable exception, and that's the Thrustmaster SF1000 wheel which I mentioned earlier. This does cost considerably less at just $400, but it comes with a much lower overall quality. In terms of the overall design and quality, a lot of what made the original FSR wheel so good returns for this FSR2. And if you missed our original review of the FSR wheel, let's take a look at what we get for our money with this second iteration. Now the FSR2 Formula wheel is 218mm across, and it's an F1 style sim racing wheel. Across the front of the wheel are a whole host of inputs, including 10 individual RGB push buttons, which all have a rather soft activation. By soft I mean that there's a rather long throw with a really quiet click, and this is unchanged from the original. You've got 5 front-facing rotary encoders which feel the same with a plastic finish, which is a slight letdown, as I would have preferred a slightly more premium finish such as a little metal accent or something similar. However, I'm convinced the new encoders are actually slightly easier to rotate than the originals. There are also 2 thumb encoders which are nice and stiff to prevent incorrect inputs. As I mentioned earlier, the 2 joysticks are much improved, They now allow for true directional inputs, rotational inputs, and a push click, and this opens up a good number of additional inputs and is definitely an improvement and a step in the right direction. The biggest change to the front, however, are with the screen and the surround. The display itself is the same size at 4.3 inches, however it now features touch functionality, letting you swipe to change your display. This is powered by a 1.3 GHz quad-core processor, and it really allows for fast interaction and very low latency. The surrounding plastic utilises a different design to accommodate those new flag lights, and both the flag lights and shift lights are all individually lit RGB LEDs, and these look much nicer than the original LEDs with the diffuse strip. You can also notice a nice new MOZA Racing logo that's actually embossed and finished in a glossy metal. This is such a small touch, but it does make the wheel look instantly more premium compared to the printed logo on the old wheel. Other than these changes, the rest of the wheel remains pretty much the same. There's still a 5mm thick carbon faceplate, along with perforated microfiber leather grips, making the ergonomics and quality on par with the original. On the reverse of the wheel, we've got slightly revised bolts used on the quick release, but the big change is with the paddle shifters. The old 4-paddle configuration is replaced with a new 6-paddle layout. The design of each paddle is slightly different, with some slots added, and the layout has been slightly altered to accommodate the 2 new upper paddles. But the quality with the carbon fibre is exactly the same as before. The feel of the activation also remains similar, although I am happy to say the MOZA has dampened the loud clicking sound ever so slightly. Activating a paddle is still on the loud side, but it's much quieter than before. Because of this, dampening pads are no longer included in the box. The FSR2 remains one of the most compatible MOZA wheels thanks to the included data port on the rear of the wheel. This allows you to hardwire it to the MOZA Universal Hub, allowing it to be used with third-party wheelbases. This doesn't need to be done though if you're using a MOZA wheelbase, as power and data are sent directly through the quick release, which much like all MOZA wheels remains excellent. Now, all of the elements of the FSR2 that have changed over the original simply add to the quality or the features. There hasn't been a bad change made, and there's no wrong step here from MOZA. If you already own an FSR wheel, there really isn't a need to purchase this upgraded version. However, if you plan on buying an FSR in the future, this new FSR2 replaces the older wheel and it's available to buy from today. You may have spotted in this video, I'm using a new MOZA dashboard as well, and I've got a review coming for that very shortly. But for now guys, I will see you all on track.